What's up, everybody? Welcome to another preseason episode of the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and I'm joined, as always, by the best projector in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? Happy NBA Finals. I know this is a busy time of year for you, and we're a couple weeks away before you stop, saying the NFC Atlantic or things like that. So, I know after the finals, that's when you really switch to NFL hard. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like I'm already in it. We just did some NFL content that'll be dropping in a bit, and also I am up to, I think, the P's, I just finished the N's in my player projections. Like, I go team by team in alphabetical order and kind of do a deep dive and figure out, all their tendencies and stuff. And the Chargers took me like 8 hours. So,
oh God, yeah.
Like everything's new with them. But I feel like feeling good. And on today's episode, we are going to dive into some high upside late round running backs. And before we get to that, just want to let everybody know, in case you don't, actionnetwork.com no longer your go-to for fantasy content. It's now fantasylabs.com. So all of Kerner and my fantasy content will be on fantasylabs.com and not actionnetwork.com going forward. Also, of course, fantasylabs.com for all of our DFS tools and models as well. But high upside late round running backs, we each got 4 that we really like. Mm-hmm. So we'll do 8 in total. And then just got some kind of miscellaneous backfield situations I may want to get your thoughts on if we will have time. So do that at the end. So why don't you start us off? Who's your favorite high upside late round running back this year?
So just to start, when I think of like late round high upside running backs, I'm just thinking about running backs out of, say, like the top 30 or 35 in ADP. Those are typically, the backup running backs entering the season. And the first guy I want to talk about is Tyjae Spears. He's RB 34. So again, right on that cusp of where I consider him, a high upside backup. And I haven't done my running back upside chart piece yet. That should be out in a couple weeks, but I'm guessing that Spears will be an A value there. Typically, I only have a few of those every year, but he really checks all the boxes I look for where, he's a backup running back. They brought in Tony Pollard to be the lead back. However, Tyjae Spears should have a big enough role where I think he's going to provide, have best ball value weeks, even when Tony Pollard is healthy. And then if and when Tony Pollard were to miss time, I think he could push low-end RB1 value. So that's really the exact type of running back I'm looking for. And last year, he managed to finish as the RB35, not only despite backing up King Henry, but Derrick Henry played all 17 games. So he didn't even have a chance to get a spot start. And he still finished as the RB35. So this is a situation where I think he could easily be in some sort of 50-50 timeshare with Tony Pollard. And to be honest, Tony Pollard didn't look great last year. There's a non-zero chance that Spears could actually become the lead back, so to speak, in sort of a split committee. So I just love the upside that you're getting with Spears. Again, at RB34, you're not even having to risk that much. I think this is actually closer to his floor. So Tyjae Spears is probably a guy that I will have an A+ grade for in my RB upside chart.
Yeah, I like it. And, you got the new coaching regime out there. So even though, Spears is like a holdover from the last regime, he played really well. And, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And I think that's what you're looking for when you're fishing for upside, in these double-digit rounds. You're looking for uncertainty and a wide range of outcomes. And like you said, I think there's a non-zero chance that Spears, forces a even split committee. And, if he plays like he did last year, I mean, he was 12th out of 57 qualifiers, according to PFF, in yards after contact per attempt at 3.15, which I always like to look at because, yards before contact's a little more dependent on the offensive line, which could still be an issue for the Titans, but, the fact that he's able to get up over 3 yards after contact, that almost, that's a pretty sticky metric. And, if you're getting over 3 after, that pretty much guarantees that you should have a floor of around 4 yards per carry, which is always nice because you don't want to like Javonte Williams it or something. Cam Akers, I should say. Cam Akers is the poster child for the low yards per carry these days. What was our guy? Kalen Balaj. That was the guy who always used to get like 1.3 or something on that bad Miami team that year. But no, I like it. I like Spears a lot. For my first one, I'll go with a guy. I think we talked about him on one of our recent pods, but Blake Corum, the rookie running back for the Los Angeles Rams, and he's going RB42 in consensus, an underdog. Get him around 125th overall, so round 11. So I like the value there because this Ram backfield was one of the most run-heavy backfields in the league last year. And Kyren Williams, I just don't know if he's going to be able to handle much more than the 228 carries that he had a season ago. He's already has an injury in camp. I think he's going to be out a few weeks, so Corum should get some additional reps there. But, I think they went out and drafted this guy because Kyren Williams is obviously extremely productive last year, but he's on the smaller side. And for that Ram run game to kind of, operate at peak efficiency, I think they need to give him a little more of a break and spell him a little more. But even if they don't, like I said, it's a pretty voluminous backfield for the Rams. And Corum, I think if something were to happen to Kyren Williams, I think Corum would become the feature back in the short term and maybe even, for the duration of the season if it were that kind of injury. So I really like the upside, and kind of like Spears, I do think there's going to be some weeks where you see Corum with some standalone value just because of, how the Rams offense likes to operate, the fact that it should be pretty efficient with, Stafford and those passing weapons. So, the, what was it? 414 carries that the Rams had last year and 17 rushing touchdowns. I think that, some of those will definitely go Corum's direction this year. So I like getting him in round 11.
Yeah, I love it. And it's too soon to really speculate on injuries. I mean, somebody could like break their foot right now and still be totally fine for week one. But I saw a report that like the Rams are asking Corum to, develop his route running, pass catching skills in an attempt to be a 3-down back. So that could be a sign that, they're a little bit more worried about Kyren Williams' foot than they're leading on. But yeah, I agree. I think that, I was really high on Kyren Williams coming out. I said he's kind of like an Austin Eckler type. I didn't really anticipate a workhorse role that we saw last year. And I think that's kind of what they're doing here. Corum's a 3rd-round prospect. Kyren was a 5th-round one. Mm-hmm. So, and Sean McVay, he does whatever he wants with his running back room. He's done some crazy things in the past. So there's a chance, Blake Corum could just leapfrog Kyren Williams even. So I just love his upside here. And again, he's technically backing up a running back that's already dealing with injury concerns. And usually that gets a bump in my running back upside chart. So yeah, love Corum where he's going right now.
Yeah. And Sean McVay, because Corum's, he's not as small as Williams, but he's 5'8", listed at 205. So, not the biggest, but, Williams is even smaller than him. So, yep. And Sean McVay, he'll play whoever for 100% of snaps if it comes to it. We've seen him do it with Tutu Atwell and DeMarcus Robinson and Kyren Williams. So if Corum, manages to get some of those injury weeks from Kyren, who's missed, I think 10 games over his two-year NFL career, you might be looking at a 95-100%, some 95-100% snap week. So love the upside for best ball and love the standalone value as well. But where are you going for your second high upside back?
Going back to my boy here, Zach Charbonnet at RB42. He was just one of a few running backs last year I gave an A grade or better to in my chart. To be honest, I thought he would have been a bigger threat to a healthy Kenneth Walker than he was last season. And despite being very efficient, it was clear that this is still Kenneth Walker's backfield when he's healthy. But, we have a new coaching regime, so that could inject some uncertainty into that. Plus, the new offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, is very familiar with Zach Charbonnet, who went for nearly 200 yards against his Washington team in 2022. So I still think, Charbonnet is talented enough to post some usable best ball games, even when Kenneth Walker is healthy. But he has one of the highest upsides still as a spot starter. I think anytime Walker misses time, Charbonnet will provide, say, low-end RB1 value. He had 2 spot starts last year in weeks 12 through 13. He finished as a RB16. I was very disappointed. He saved his least efficient weeks for when he was the workhorse back. You're going to see a drop in efficiency once, you get into the workhorse role, but he saw a pretty significant one. So I was disappointed in that, but still going forward, I think he will provide low-end RB1 value if and when Walker misses time. So again, he has that kind of dual, threat here where he's going to provide some value even when Walker's healthy, and then offer, potential RB1 value when he's out. So at RB42, that's really the range where you want to be taking guys like that. So, I'm going back to the Zach Charbonnet well again this year.
Yeah, and you have good luck with being like a year ahead of guys, and then like they blow up the next year. So
good luck or bad luck?
Well, I mean, both, because you were on Kyron Williams since he was drafted, and I mean 1 out of 2 ain't bad. So hopefully I'm not a year early on Corum, but it's I'm looking for a Charbonnet breakout this year because of that. My next guy is definitely going to be the least sexy guy that we talk about, and also the oldest guy, but Ezekiel Elliott, I think, has a ton of upside because he's on the Dallas Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys score a lot of points. That's just what they do. And that offense, it's going to hum with Dak Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb's going to move up and down the field. And Ezekiel Elliott, may, at least right now, looks like the top back on the depth chart. Obviously, Rico Dowdle, maybe a veteran. I think Royce Freeman is there. Deuce Vaughn will probably get a few more looks this year in year 2. But Zeke, right now, is the favorite to lead the Cowboys in carries. And even though he's on the downside of his career at age 29, and his yards per carry, 3.5 last year, 3.8 the year before, he can still be productive when he gets volume. And he showed that in a couple of starts for New England last year. He also showed that in 2022 when, people were starting to say he was washed on the Cowboys, averaged over 15 carries a game that year, despite splitting work with Tony Pollard. But more importantly, 12 touchdowns that year. And I think he can do something similar this year just because of how good this Dallas offense is. I do think Rico Dowdle will get an uptick, and I still think, you might have another veteran factor in at some point, but it looks like they're going to, kind of go the discount route with Ezekiel Elliott. And that's all good and fine with me because I'll take that value every time because the Cowboys, 29.9 points per game a season ago. That was number 1 in the NFL. And that was with, the defense kind of vulturing, for lack of a better term, some of their scores. The defense scored a lot, but if not, I think that would have been even more, yards and points for the offense. So it's probably going to be ugly, but when you're talking about a guy going, 127th overall, an underdog guy you can get in round 11 that has double-digit touchdown upside and is the favorite to lead the top scoring team in the league in carries, I'm going to take that every time. Age and wear and tear and washness be damned.
yeah. Like he's tricky to label because I typically think of backups, but he's the RB40 right now, and he's probably going to be their starting running back. Yep. So it's a no-brainer value. Like you said, it's not sexy. This is the time of year where I feel like running backs are being drafted too high, and you could get some old fart like Zeke at a discount. So you just got to do it. Like you said, it's not the sexiest thing, but I mean, he should see the goal line work in a very high scoring offense. So he at least has a touchdown upside. And yeah, I think he's a great pick at RB40. I think even like Rico Dowdle in that range makes sense. You know, he might have more upside, but I'm just not really scared of Deuce Vaughn making any noise. They really didn't use him much last year, even in situations I thought they should. And apparently they're lining him up at like slot receiver, so they're just trying to think of ways to use him. But it's really right now like Zeke and Rico Dowdle. Like this is their backfield. So I think both guys are offering value. Zeke probably offering the most at RB40 right now.
Yeah, his last season in Dallas in 2022, in 15 games, he finished as the RB20 with those 12 touchdowns. I mean, you know, look at a guy like Gus Edwards last year. Like sometimes all you need is those touchdowns. You know, you don't need receiving work. You don't need anything.
Right.
Just give me some touchdowns. So
well, the good news, his last play for the Cowboys isn't that random. What the hell happened that last play?
Oh, well, against San Francisco, we got pancaked by yeah.
And we thought that was his last play as the Dallas Cowboy. So luckily he'll get to replace that memory this year.
Yeah, knock on wood. Don't
yeah, exactly.
Don't sustain any camp injuries, Zeke.
Yeah.
All right, where are you going next?
Let's go with the Dolphins backfield. I'm going to go with Jaylen Wright at RB47. And I think, you know, the Dolphins was a sneaky good landing spot for Wright, you know, who has blazing 4.38 speed. Obviously, that's what the Dolphins look for when it comes to the running backs. And, you know, his main problem heading into week one is he's really the third back on the depth chart. You know, he's playing behind Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. However, you know, Mostert's now 32 years old, and Achane was very injury prone as a rookie, and he really only needs one of these two backs to miss time. This is an offense that can support two fantasy backs at once. So just think of it that way, where he really has double the odds of becoming a semi-spot starter. And he has explosive speed. So at any given week, he could score a long touchdown. And in a best ball, you don't need to figure out what weeks those are. So he can provide some spiked weeks, even when both running backs are healthy. But either way, I just think he really fits this scheme perfectly. And again, he only needs one of these two running backs to miss time to offer value. It's not like you need both at the same time. So I think that's maybe what people are overlooking. So RB47, I think he's absolutely worth a flyer in some spots.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Xavier Worthy of running backs. It's like he went to the perfect spot to take advantage of his skill set, which is, in one word, speed. You know, and last year, just for reference, Raheem Mostert, the RB2 in 15 games, and then Achane, the RB24 in just 11 games. So Miami not only can support two running backs, can support two top 24 running backs without even playing their full complement of games. And I would bet money that Raheem Mostert is going to miss a few games this year. I mean, that's just kind of what he does. All righty. Next up for me, I got Ray Davis, the rookie running back for the Buffalo Bills. And I really love this landing spot for him. You know, there wasn't really, as you've kind of spoken about in numerous spots, wasn't really many great running back landing spots in this draft. It also wasn't a strong running back draft, but Ray Davis out of Kentucky is a guy who has some talent, and I think he slots in as the James Cook backup right away. The only competition he really has is Ty Johnson, which, you know, Ty Johnson did pop near the end of last year, but we always see that, you know, random veteran flavor of the month, you know, gets a few extra carries because, you know, there's nobody else. I mean, they had the ghost of Latavius Murray, and unfortunately Damian Harris got hurt early on in the year. So they really, you know, they were just kind of throwing things at the wall once they started running more. And don't forget, once Joe Brady took over for Buffalo last year at offensive coordinator in the second half of the year, Buffalo's rush rate exploded. They became a lot more run heavy and a lot less pass happy. And that was probably one of the reasons they were comfortable letting Gabe Davis walk, letting Stephon Diggs, you know, trading him to Houston. So I think that Ray Davis, you know, he may have a week one role. Obviously, James Cook is going to be the starter, but Davis may have a week one role. I think he has enough talent to commander role as that RB2, which, for this new look Bills offense, that could be valuable. And then if James Cook were to go down, I think you're looking at, 15, 20 touches for Davis, and then Johnson getting another, 5 to 8 behind him. So really like Ray Davis, one of these guys who, people may not be familiar with, was a middle round pick. So not getting too much buzz, but you can get him just outside the top 150 overall around round 14 of 12 team drafts. And I think he has upside that's, a single digit round upside. So I'll take that all day.
Yeah, love this landing spot for him. And similar to Kyron Williams, I thought James Cook would just be more like a pass catching back. Didn't envision him being a true workhorse back, and he proved me wrong last year. He was the workhorse back for all 17 games. He stayed healthy, but I think they do want to limit his workload if they can. And Ray Davis is kind of like Zach Moss from a few years ago. Maybe they passed up on Moss. They gave up on him maybe a little bit prematurely, but they do kind of want that guy. Maybe at some point try to limit Josh Allen around the goal line. So I think Ray Davis could be, a legit goal line back. But either way, this is a great landing spot for him. Because like you said, the Bills were more run heavy under Joe Brady last year. And they just lost Diggs and Gabe Davis. So they're just going to be more run heavy in general. So I think Ray Davis is one of those guys that even when James Cook is healthy, might have some usable best ball games.
Yeah, he's showed some flashes as a pass catcher, so I think he could definitely handle some 3-down work for the Bills. All right, who is your last number 4 favorite high upside best ball running back?
Yeah, so this one's more of a dart throw, but it's Kimani Vidal of the Chargers. He's going just outside of the top 50. He's the RB 50 right now. The Chargers took him in the 6th round. I thought he was a sneaky prospect out of Troy, but this is a great landing spot for him because you kind of alluded to it. It took you forever to project the Chargers because who the hell knows what's going on there. But the backfield specifically is a bit of a question mark. I mean, Gus Edwards is expected to be the lead back. Well, the running back he's backed up the past few seasons, and J.K. Dobbins is also there. I guess he's the backup now. But Dobbins is coming off an Achilles tear, which we know is the most detrimental injury a running back can have. So who knows if Dobbins will regain his form this year or ever. So this is just a very murky backfield. And I think, the Chargers drafting Vidal is also an indictment against Isaiah Spiller, who hasn't lived up to his 4th round draft capital. Not too worried about him. This is a new coaching regime anyway under Harbaugh. So this is going to be a more run-heavy offense. And Vidal, he's a smaller back at 5'8", but he's 213 pounds. Proved at Troy he can handle, a massive workload. So if Edwards and or Dobbins go down, I think he could handle 20-plus touches. But this is just a scenario where the Chargers' backfield is going to be volatile, and a player that would benefit from the volatility would be Vidal. So this is just a situation where he might be thrown on the depth chart, but he doesn't need much to break his way to provide, top 30 value. So I think he's a sneaky flyer in that. I wouldn't go nuts and draft him on every team, but he does have enough upside and is in a murky situation where he's definitely worth a flyer around this range.
Yeah, and here's why I think this is such a great dart throw. Greg Roman taking over at offensive coordinator for the Chargers. He has coordinated 10 offenses in his career. Mm-hmm. He has never had an offense finish lower than 9th in rushing attempts. He's only had 3 of the 10 finish outside the top 3 in rushing attempts. So you are going to see a ton of volume, I think, for this backfield. And it should be efficient because when you're throwing the ball, Justin Herbert's, still going to be efficient. So you're going to be able to move the ball. You're going to be able to get in scoring position. And J.K. Dobbins, I feel like we're down on him every year. I love his talent, but J.K. Dobbins has now played, he's been in the league, 4 years now? He's played 24 games over that span. Yeah, he got drafted in 2020. He's only played 24 games in 4 years. He's only had more than 15 carries in a game once in his career, and that was 17. So J.K. Dobbins has never been a workhorse, and I think that ship has sailed now that, he's coming off the Achilles, and he's just every time. I mean, he plays well when he's on the field, but just like they have to kind of keep him in bubble wrap. And then Gus Edwards, I mean, he's always been kind of a 8 to 12 carry guy. He can do more, but there could just be a week 1 role for Vidal right off jump, especially if Dobbins. I know he's kind of optimistic, and I hope he gets back, for his sake, because that's just got to be. That's just got to be a lot mentally to deal with, just injury after injury. But in terms of projecting and forecasting this backfield and the carries, I find it hard not to project Vidal for approaching 100 carries as a rookie, even in this committee. So he might have. He's another guy might have some standalone value weeks in best ball, and that's the thing about best ball. You don't have to know when they are. So love that one as well. That's a guy I definitely would have picked if you hadn't taken him.
What was it? Dobbins a couple years ago who broke off that 80-yard run. He was limping the whole way. So it looked like our boy Darren Ravel running a 40-yard dash. I think that was 2022. He was coming back from an ACL tear. He didn't look right, but he still broke off an 80-yard touchdown. Not 100%, but he's been dealing with injury after injury. Feel bad for him, and just an Achilles is really tough. So, I don't have high hopes for him this year, but again, he was a talented back. It's just been unfortunate. But one more quick thing about Vidal is he's a pretty good pass blocker for a rookie. So I think that's kind of how he can get a week 1 role as the third down back. I mean, that's not Gus Edwards' specialty by any means. So, I think he could become sort of the third down back, at least initially.
Yeah, and that would make sense because they also gave Will Dissly, all these former Seahawk tight ends just cashed in free agency. Colby Parkinson, Dissly, but yeah, so the Chargers go out and they sign Will Dissly to be their starting tight end, give him $10 million guaranteed. So anytime you have a kind of a blocking type, I know Dissly used to be a good pass catcher, right? Now he's known as one of the best blockers. That opens up, some potential routes for the running back instead. And like you said, Edwards and to a lesser extent Dobbins not really known as pass catchers. So yeah, a lot of different ways I think Vidal could secure a role here. All right, for my last guy, this is going to be an interesting one because I don't think he's on many people's radars, but I would be remiss if I don't mention him just because of what's going on with the Houston Texans offense, and that's Dameon Pierce. Post-hype, you could get him in round 17 at 194th overall. He's essentially free in most drafts, and he's just one of these guys that's a kind of a situation where, okay, you trade for Joe Mixon, but he's in a new spot and he's kind of on the older side for running backs. You're in an offense that has 3 of the best receivers in the game and one of the best quarterbacks in the game, so it's going to be a high scoring offense. And all he needs is one Joe Mixon injury, a couple a week here, a week there, and he's going to be back into that 15 to 20 touch role that he had as a rookie. And what really happened to him in year 2 was that Bobby Slowick, they switched the run scheme up, and Pierce just never grasped it. But now another offseason to kind of grasp the scheme and work with the offensive line and all that stuff. I think he'll be better this year, and if called upon, I think he'll be able to be more productive than he was last year, where he just could never get it going. So, as good as this Texans offense is expected to be, we're all kind of focused on the pass game with Diggs and Collins and Tank Dell and CJ Stroud and Dalton Schultz and all those guys. But, the running back could have some sneaky value. Last year, the running back, the touchdowns didn't really go the running back's way. But, if they're moving the ball up and down the field, we know touchdowns are high variance. So I think, Pierce is just one injury away from a very valuable role, and he's essentially free. So I've been taking some flyers on him.
Yeah, he's definitely going in that range where you look at other backs like Tank Bigsby, Elijah Mitchell. Even if the starting running back were to go down, I don't know if they're going to provide RB2 value, but I think we could be more confident that Pierce will, because like you said, the depth chart behind him. Johar Jordan might potentially eat in his work, but I think Pierce would be the guy. So I think your process here is right, where Pierce in that RB60 range does make a ton of sense. And I guess you won't be taking his under 9.5 rushing yards props anymore.
I mean, maybe if Mixon has like the Singletary role week 1 and he's healthy, like I will. But and like another thing I like about Pierce, is like, because like most of the guys we're talking about here are rookies, right? So if you're going for other guys, I like the fact that this is a guy who was being drafted in the top 25 in his rookie year. This is a guy who, has shown that he can be a startable fantasy running back in the past. So he at least had, and he's only in this is year 3. So, it's like kind of a post hype, but he does have somewhat of a track record. And like you mentioned Bigsby, who's another guy I think is worth a dart throw, but you mentioned you're kind of a little unsure about him.
Yeah.
It could be coach speak, but they are saying they want to get him some more looks. So he's a guy to keep in mind as well. But there are a couple of other situations I just want to kind of get your thoughts on.
Sure.
The first being, what do you make of this Green Bay backfield? Because, Josh Jacobs probably going to be a workhorse, but they re-signed AJ Dillon and then they drafted Marshawn Lloyd. So in reverse order, I think they drafted Lloyd and then they re-signed Dillon. So do you think it's like kind of a redshirt year for Lloyd the way it was a redshirt year for Dillon when he was behind Jones and Jamal Williams? Or do you think Lloyd is just a better player and has more upside if Jacobs were to go down in year 1?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think I don't view this as a red shirt year for Lloyd. I think he absolutely has the talent to pass up AJ Dillon as soon as this year. Obviously, I'm always a little biased towards USC players, full disclosure, but I thought Lloyd was sneaky going in this draft, and we've seen enough AJ Dillon now where I've kind of moved on from him. So I do think that Josh Jacobs will be the workhorse back, but Lloyd will certainly make a case to be, his direct backup or see enough work, even when Jacobs is healthy to potentially provide value. So no, I think that Lloyd could absolutely pass up AJ Dillon this year.
Yeah, and like for all Dillon's size, I thought Dillon actually looked his best as a pass catcher last year. Go figure. So, maybe Marshawn Lloyd just gets that number 2 running back roll down, and Dillon is more of the pass catcher, pass blocker type of guy. But Lloyd can play all 3 downs. So yeah, I just wanted to ask. But I'm kind of there too. It's really hard to project them because you do also have the track record of Green Bay kind of redshirting a day 2 running back pick. But I think Dillon, that was kind of okay, we can sign him on the cheap, so why not? But Lloyd may pass him up, as soon, going into week 1, he might end up jumping him in camp. So that's one to watch. And then another one that I always struggle with is Elijah Mitchell, because, he can get him usually outside of the top 50 running backs. Let's see, where is he going? Elijah Mitchell is RB67 in consensus. He's picked number 200 overall in best ball. So, he goes super late. I know they drafted a running back in Garendo, but, Christian McCaffrey's most weeks, he plays every single snap. This offense is one of the best in the league. If McCaffrey were to go down, Mitchell almost certainly would be next in line. But do you think he's worth the risk given his durability issues thus far in his young career?
Yeah, that's a good question because, anytime we're drafting Christian McCaffrey's backup, the only time they're ever going to provide value is when he's out, and McCaffrey has proven to be very durable in this Niners scheme. So it's already a risky proposition, but I think now there is some uncertainty. I don't know if Mitchell would just be, the plug and play high-end RB2 guy like we're kind of used to seeing. If the starter goes down, I do like Garendo. They took him in the 4th round. He is very fast. Seems like a perfect fit for this scheme. So I would be a little bit more cautious just giving Mitchell RB2 status when McCaffrey goes down. I think Garendo could be a problem. So that's why I'd be a little hesitant to take Mitchell now. He himself has had durability issues even as the backup. So normally I would say absolutely, but I think right now the Guerrero selection in the 4th round does give me some pause.
Yeah, and Jordan Mason has been productive as well when he's been on the field. But I mean, Mitchell is somewhat intriguing, just because he does have that track record, and he is, as far as we know, still the backup. Yeah. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. I don't know where I am on him either. I'm probably not going to get too much of him, but I mean, RB67. I'll definitely have some exposure. Maybe 5% of my teams or something like that. Just a little sprinkle.
Yeah, well, to be fair, he doesn't even need McCaffrey to get hurt. When they have those blowouts, he does handle the mop-up duty, and he had, a couple touchdowns, some longer runs in the 4th quarter when they pull the starters. So I guess he does have that appeal because the 49ers are going to be as good this year. So he does get some work in blowouts at least. So that's another way he can provide you some best ball, weeks.
Yeah, and then definitely Tyler Algier, I guess we don't have to talk about. He's pretty cut and dry. I feel like he would be a feature back if Bijan were to go down, and we've seen him in that role before, and he's been very productive. So, but he's kind of going where he's supposed to. RB45, not as much value, but I do have a question for you on a backfield that it's starting to look a little bit murky. And that is the Denver Broncos, because you have, Javonte Williams really fell off a cliff last season, especially down the stretch. Ended up averaging under 4 yards a carry on the season, even though he was able to play in 16 of the 17 games. Only had 3 touchdowns, only had 2.9 catches for 14.3 yards per game, which is a yard per catch of 4.9, his second straight year of averaging under 5 yards per catch. So you have Williams going at RB31. Then you have McLaughlin, who was, kind of the guy that, looked like the next up guy, undrafted free agent last year. He was most of the year, he kind of stayed in that RB3 lane. He's going RB49, which seems a bit rich because you also got 5th round pick Audric Estime, who I like, and he's going RB70, and then Samaje Perine is still there, and he might still reclaim his role, just be the passing down back, and he's going RB76. Now, some people even think Perine is a cut candidate, so a lot of different ways this Bronco backfield could go. But my question to you is, who do you think out of those 4 guys, Williams at RB31, McLaughlin RB49, and then Estime at 70 and Perine at 76. Who's the best value? Who's the highest upside guy relative to ADP in that Bronco backfield, do you think?
Yeah, I would go with McLaughlin, and you kind of alluded to it. It's kind of rich. Looks like, RB50 range. Mm-hmm. But he has that, explosive 80-yard touchdown potential where even if it is a murky mess, which it does seem like it will be, he could still offer best ball weeks. It'd be tough to have him in like a redraft league where you got to figure out what week he's going to score a longer touchdown or something. But best ball, you kind of embrace that. And Estime, it's probably minor, but he did undergo a knee scope. So that's something to monitor if he's going to be ready to go. But I like what I saw about from McLaughlin last year. And yeah, Samaje Perine, he's an annoying piece of this puzzle. So yeah, ideally he gets cut and it just clears up or gives us a little bit more clarity. But I would say when healthy, this is still Javonte's backfield. He was coming back from injury last year, right? So willing to forgive him a little bit on last year. But yeah, like you said, this is kind of a mess. And unless we get some sort of cut like Perine, it's going to continue to be a mess. But Jaleel, I think, offers the most inherent upside, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I could see them doing is they might keep 4 backs on the roster. I mean, I don't know if Estime would make it to the practice squad if he were to get, cut in the preseason. He did have some buzz. It was still a 5th rounder, so maybe not. But I think what would happen is they would keep 4 and just make, Estime inactive because I think he would be kind of like the direct backup to Javonte Williams. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think McLaughlin offers the most, just pure talent that's like relative to ADP. I mean, Williams, It seems like the injury, we don't know if he's going to get back to where he was at. And the fact that they drafted Estime, they only had limited draft capital. So the fact that they used a 5th rounder on Audric Estime doesn't exactly make me feel great about how they feel about Javonte Williams. So, I think McLaughlin, hopefully he drops a little bit. And another guy, and then we'll get out of here. I just noticed Chuba Hubbard is down to RB 47. And I think that's interesting. I know we love Jonathan Brooks, and it looks like he may be ready by week 1, but Miles Sanders has been in a lot of trade rumors. So, Sanders is a guy that might end up on like the Dallas Cowboys or something like that. If that happens, and even if it doesn't, I mean, Chuba Hubbard ran circles around Miles Sanders. So Miles Sanders is another guy, probably maybe either 0 carries or potentially even, because he doesn't play special teams, he could be another guy that's like an inactive if they keep him on the roster. So Chuba Hubbard, if he keeps dropping RB 47, I mean, you have a chance that he starts week 1 as the starter. He can play all 3 downs. And, his main competition is a guy who, couldn't get positive yardage last year, and a rookie who's coming off a serious injury. So Chuba Hubbard, another guy, not as sexy, but definitely if you're talking upside, especially in best ball where you don't have to predict when, Chuba Hubbard is a guy I would take all day at RB 47.
Yeah, he's similar to Zeke, where he might be the workhorse back by default. Brooks, he tore his ACL in November, so there's a chance he's not going to be 100% to start the season. And maybe the Panthers want to kind of limit him, similar to how the Jets handled Breece Hall last year. I could see a path for Hubbard hitting value there, especially if they get rid of Sanders. They did recently acquire Rashad Penny, who always pops up when you least expect. I thought the Eagles would use him at some point last year. They didn't, but he's there right now. I can get behind Chuba Hubbard at RB 47 because he technically doesn't really need anybody to get hurt to provide value. He might just be the de facto starter week 1 until Brooks inevitably is healthier. But I love Brooks. I think he has a ton of upside. But I can get behind Hubbard at RB 47.
Yeah, and Penny is a guy to watch just to kind of, in terms of like figuring out how this backfield is going to shake out, because Canales, who is the new head coach in Tampa Bay, remember, he was in Seattle for a long time. And, when he was in Seattle, that's when Penny was actually getting usage. And then he went to Philadelphia and he just was buried completely. So who knows? Maybe Penny beats out Miles Sanders, or they trade Miles Sanders, so Penny could be a factor as well. But yeah, as of right now, I do like that value on Chuba. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Fantasy Flex on high upside late round running backs for best ball. If you want more fantasy football content from Sean and myself, go check out fantasylabs.com. You can find us on X, formerly Twitter, at _oddsmaker. For Sean, I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. And we will be back with more episodes leading into the 2024 season. So be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcast. Next episode, we're going to talk about our favorite best ball stacks. So be sure to check that out. Thanks for listening. Until next time, let's get this money.